Good morning. Good morning. I trust you are doing well. So now today we are going to look at the graphs. We're going to look at the graphs. So the graph that we're going to really look at today, number one, it's the straight line graph or the linear graph. That is number one, straight line graph. And then in the second one, we are going to look at what we call parabola or quadratic graph. Then now a straight line graph, before we talk about anything, a straight line graph, it's always as y equal to mx plus c. So that is actually the formula for the graph called straight line. Okay, so now somebody can be asking him or yourself to say, what is m? M is the gradient or the slope. So this gradient is the same as y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1. So it means that for you to calculate the gradient, obviously you need to be given 2 points. But when you go to N3, that is where they're going to really look at that into detail. Then now we have what we call C. C, we call it the y-intercept. Or that is where the graph is cutting. We call it the y-intercept. So that is where the graph is cutting. Then obviously x is just there. Okay. Then now, before we really draw the graph, one thing that we need to understand is that when we are drawing the graph, we need to have the Cartesian plane, so to say. This is the Cartesian plane. Then obviously this is your x, that is your y, that is your negative x, then that is your negative y. Then, now sometimes they can even ask you a question like, draw the graph of x, it's equal to 3. If they can ask you something like that, x is equal to 3, you need to go and point where is 3. So we can write 3 here, that is our 3, x is equal to 3. Then we can draw a line. Then we can draw a line. That is the first one. Then number 2, they can say draw the graph of y equal to negative 2. Y equal to negative 2. Then you can just go and draw wherever you see the negative side, that will be negative 2. Then you can draw a line there. So this line automatically is equal to y equal to negative 2. That one is x, it's equal to 3. Then at the very same time, they can say draw the graph of x is equal to minus 1. Then we go where minus 1 is. This is minus 1. Then we can draw a line. That will be a line just like that. So now this one, it's x, it's equal to negative 1. Then the last one, we can just say draw the graph of y equal to 5. Then you can come here and say this is your 5. Then you draw it. Then y, it's equal to 5. Okay. Understand that this is how we do it. Now, let me say something like this. I'm going to point. I will say this is your A, then this is your B, then this is your C, that is your D. Sometimes they can say write the coordinate or write that thing in terms of coordinate. In terms of coordinate, how do we go about that? And that will be A. Remember, the coordinates, it's always as x, y. Then now, here, we normally start with the x-intercept, or not the x-intercept, we always start with the x-coordinate. So here, that will be negative 1 and 0. Then number B, because that is in the y origin, x is 0. That will be 0 and 5. Then number C, we have 3 there, that will be 3 and 0. Then number D, we have what we call negative, that will be 0 and negative 2. Then we are done. That is how we can write this, what we call the coordinates. So now, there are 2 ways in which you can draw the graph. There are 2 ways in which you can draw the graph. There are 2 ways in which you can draw the graph. Number 1, we talk about the table method graph, the table method graph. And then number 2, we talked about the y, the x, and the y intercept method. I will stick with number 2 because that is the most simplest one, and that is the one that we can really do even when we are doing parabola. However, I will still do the other one. Let's take for an example, they say that draw the graph. That is number 1. Draw the graph. Draw the graph of f of x. It's equal to, let me just say 3x minus 6. So remember, whenever you see this thing f of x, that is the same as y equal to 3x minus 6. So now I'm going to use the x and the y intercept. What does that mean? When we talk about the x and the y intercept, well, that is where the graph is going to cut. When we say x intercept, this is where the graph is going to cut. So automatically, we normally say, or we need to know that, we normally say let y be 0. Y automatically is 0. Okay? Then now we have y, it's equal to 3x minus 6. So now, wherever we see y, we're going to write 0. Then we're going to say 3x minus 6. Then we're going to take minus 6 to the other side. That will be 6. It's equal to 3x. Then we divide by 3 both sides. I'm going to explain something in 2 minutes there after this one. Then we have this and that will cancel. Then we have x, it's equal to 6 divided by 3, that is 2. Okay. Then now we are looking for the y-intercept. The y-intercept. Normally, we're going to say let x be equal to 0. That will be y equal to 3. 0 minus 6, then it is minus 6. So already you need to know that when we are talking about the y-intercept, it's already this one. It's already this one. However, make sure that your formula, it's always in a standard form. Like it must always be like this, mx plus c. You have to make sure that. So we have y equal to mx plus c. So now I'm going to explain something very, very important, or rather I'm just going to draw the graph. So when I draw the graph here, I'm going to use this value here, and then the second one, So this is the graph. I'm going to draw it here. Then the value of x was 2. Then the value of y was negative 6. The value of y was negative 6. That is y, negative x, negative y, then x. So now this is the point. That is the point. So now you can draw it here. You can draw it there. So, which means that that is what we call y equal to, you can just say 3x minus 6. So what is more important here? This point here, this point is the same as C, which we call it the y-intercept. That is where the graph is going to cut, the y-intercept. Then this one here, it's x-intercept, x-intercept. So that is where the graph is going to cut. So now whenever we are going to mark this thing, we normally check this one and that one plus the shape or plus the direction. So now 2 things to note in this graph is that if you are given 2 things to note, I can say 2 things to note. What are the 2 things to note? If my m, which is the gradient, is greater than 0, which is positive, then this graph is increasing. It's increasing. Then number 2, if m is less than, so now this graph is decreasing. So this is the decreasing graph. That is the decreasing graph. Then those 2 things are very, very, very important. So they can ask you something like that. So then now we can just go and do the second one, the graph, the second one, which is we can have something like number 2. It's x over 4 plus y over -2 is equal to 1. So then they can say draw the graph of the following. So now what you need to do here, there are many ways to do this one, but make sure that your graph is always as y equal to mx plus c. That is very, very important. So what I'm going to do is to take this x over 4 to the other side. So I'm going to have y -2 is equal to negative x, because it's going to the other side, negative x over 4 plus 1. Then I want to get rid of what? I want to get rid of -2. So which means that I'm going to multiply everything by -2. So that will be by -2. Then I'm going to multiply everything by -2. It doesn't matter where it is, but that -2 will multiply everything. Then these 2 will cancel. Then the remaining is y. It's equal to, so I'm going to remove the bracket. When I remove the bracket with the first one, that will be minus and a minus. That will give us positive. Then we've got 2x over 4, then minus 2, because we are removing the bracket. Then from there, which means that what we have here, it's the same as x over 4, x over 2 minus 2. Why? Because of, we say 2 divided by 4. Then from here, we can see that we can work on y-intercept. Y-intercept. So when we talk about the y-intercept here, we normally say let x be 0. Then we have y equal to x over 2. Then wherever we see x, we're going to write 0. That will be 0 divided by 2 minus 2. Hence, that is -2. That is -2. Then we go to the second one, which is the x-intercept. X-intercept. Remember, we normally say let y be 0. Then we're going to put 0. It's equal to x over 2 minus 2. Then we're going to take these 2 to the other side. It changes the sign. That is 2, which is equal to x over 2. Then we cross multiply. That will be 2 times 2, which is 4. That is the value of x. That is the value of x. Then we can draw the graph. Remember, when we draw the graph, we only need this point and that point. So that is the graph. These are the 2 points. Then the x, the y is -2. That is -2. Then the x is 4. Then these are the 2 things. Then what do? This is what we have. That is what we have. So that is the graph. So remember, this is -x, y, x, -y. So this is how we normally draw using the x and the y intercept method. The x and the y intercept method. I'm looking forward to see you in the next video, wherein I will be explaining on how to draw the parabola. Thank you so much.